Well, good evening, dear colleagues. Well, I do hope that you can hear me. Well, just to check our connection for today, well, our webinar is focused on the topic of project-based learning as a way to students' independence. And before we actually start, I'd like to hear from you. Do you use well, project-based learning? If so, well, what are your impressions of it? Do you appreciate it? Does it work for your students, or it doesn't? Well, I know your experiences. Could you please write them in the chat box? Just for us to know that you can hear us and that everything is okay with the tech. And waiting for your comments. Okay, yeah. Right. Well, actually, project-based learning is kind of new and, well, depends whether it's efficient or not, depending on the audience, depending on the organization, etc. But today we're going to speak a little bit about, well, about its benefits and how it can work, we can make it work better. Probably if you have any questions or any comments that you have in the process of the webinar, you can just type them in the chat box, and I'll answer them at the end of the session. But before we start, just a couple of words about me. I am an associate professor at Mykola Lukasz Translation Studies Department at Karazin Kharkiv National University. But I've also been teaching English for over 8 years, both at the university and as a tutor. What I'm going to talk about will be related a little bit to language teaching in the context of the university, but also most of that information will be usable both in university context and in school contexts, and maybe in the context of some courses, like private courses. So the things that we are going to cover will be pretty general, actually. And as for our agenda for today, we are going to start with students' independence as a prerequisite of efficient learning. So why it matters, why do we need to develop students' independence in our classrooms? Then we'll move on to project-based learning. Its basic principles, its benefits, its challenges, and the organization of projects. And we'll also have a look at some project types that probably you're already familiar with, but we'll still focus on some of their benefits, some of their challenges in terms of their organization, how we can help our students to do better in those projects. What I'd like to start with is actually student independence. This has become a very common term in language learning, and not only language learning for that matter. So this is something that we really want to achieve and we want to build in our students. Primarily we want that because we know that our students will go into real world and they will face their own challenges with language use, and they'll have to cope, but already without us. And we need to equip them as well as we can to make the best of their language use in the real world. Well, we are quite used to using different methods in our teaching. Some of them you can see on the screen: lexical approach, communicative approach, TBL, project-based learning, etc. Even dogme, that has become quite popular recently. We are used to using the traditional PPP framework, which is kind of familiar, kind of reassuring, because we feel in control. We seem to know the needs of our students and what is good for them, what is not good for them. But here there is kind of a catch. Because if this is our way of thinking, we inevitably project that on our students. And they feel that actually they can be taught, but they do not have to learn, they do not have to take their own responsibility. And they feel that they can be, I don't know, taught even almost against their will, for that matter. But in order to learn, they need to be involved both cognitively and emotionally, which seems quite logical, but unfortunately it's not always the case when we place the teacher in the center of the classroom. Imagine that you're working in a company and every day you're given tasks, you're explained how to do them, but you're never told why you're actually doing them, and you do not see any purpose in that. For how long would you survive such a job? Well, probably not for long. And still, this is something that we've been doing in our classrooms all too often. And we provide useful content, but we do not always make it relevant. And what is even worse, we do not always give our students space to work out what is good for them, why they need to learn this fact or that word, whatever. Just to be clear, I'm all for combining different approaches. The communicative approach, lexical approach, dogme is kind of nice and it's been working pretty well for some time already. As for me, even L1 has like a certain value and its place in teaching English. But what I want to focus on today is how to promote the soft skills of our students through language. How to make them independent learners, well, just independent learners, not of a language, but to make them efficient communicators in a variety of contexts. And for that purpose, we need to equip them with strategies that are useful no matter what they are studying. But we need also to instill that perception of the language as a tool that they can use in order to achieve their objectives, whatever they are, to construct networks, to build knowledge, to share knowledge. And for that purpose, they need to be independent both in their communication but also in their thinking. So what does it mean for students to be independent? First of all, independent students are aware of their strengths and their weaknesses, but they are not discouraged by them. They feel that this is a space for them to grow, to set goals and to work towards achieving those goals. To make those goals clear, achievable, and basically just see them as a sort of motivation to move forward. Another key issue in student independence is responsibility. And by definition, if students are not kind of imposed some sort of content, if they feel that they are kind of active agents in their active learning, they will take responsibility, and they will understand that, well, it is up to them eventually whether they will learn or not. But what is kind of our responsibility in all of that is to equip them with tools and effective strategies that they can use for development, for moving forwards. And that goes much beyond just language use. We need to help our students develop strategies that they can apply in order to improve the competences that they've already have and that they can adapt to new contexts. This can be as basic as just research skills and looking for information that they lack on the basis of the knowledge that they've already interiorized. But more importantly, it is about self-reflection. And self-reflection is a very important concept in learning and in education in general. And I pretty much like one definition of it. That was given by the scientist and the educator Dewey, who refers to self-reflection as an active and intentional process that can begin with some discomfort with an experience and end with learning and deeper insights. Why I kind of appreciate this definition much? Because it already includes the concept of discomfort. When we do not know something, when we are not sure how to do something, definitely we will feel not very comfortable, we will feel insecure. But it is only up to us how we'll react to that, how we will cope with that discomfort and either make it useful to us and create it into a driving force for further learning, or just stop and say that, yeah, I don't feel comfortable here, so why would I continue? And it is self-reflection that helps us actually reflect on those uncomfortable areas, and actually become more, not sure of ourselves, but confident that we will be able to go beyond those limits and find a way to become comfortable there by setting goals and understanding that we can achieve them. Education in general and language learning in particular recently have become a space of mutually constructed knowledge, where knowledge belongs not only to teachers and educators, but it is built in cooperation with students. And that is related to another key concept that is not purely linguistic, but is pretty useful in, to teaching whatever subject that is, which is growth mindset. Numerous pieces of research have shown that people who have growth mindset, they have better results, they have better performance academically and in real life, in business, whatever. Because we know that our brain is just like any muscle in our body, it can be trained. And for that purpose, we just need to, well, seek help from professionals, develop strategies that work for us, and just find a way to our better selves. And if a student has this growth mindset, if they don't think that we are born with a certain fixed number of abilities that we cannot develop or improve in any way, then actually the growth mindset becomes a space for development to, well, basically to the degree that we wish it to work. And this is actually something that is pretty useful for us as educators, because our mindset is highly malleable, and we can always make it better. And we can develop the understanding of language that, well, that it is a tool. And this tool is useful for us in the real world. And to make it work, we need to appropriate it, to, I don't know, to make the language serve ourselves. And only this perspective can actually not only help our students learn, but also motivate them to see more, to learn more, etc. And actually, project-based learning is kind of best placed for that, because it revolves around real-world tasks. Can be focused on problem solving, some kind of designs, discussions, whatever that might be. But language in project-based learning is subordinate to content, because projects help to resolve some everyday problems or professional issues, depending on the context. And it involves a wide variety of skills that actually correspond to our everyday life. In projects, our students deal with tasks that are real life. They try to target a specific audience with their task, and they come to grips with different genres. They find a way to communicate in a variety of situations, and this is something that we do every day. And this is also one of the greatest benefits of project-based learning, as it helps students develop their 21st century skills, or soft skills, whatever you may call them. First of all, in order to complete a project, students need to do, well, kind of a lot of research. They need to search for information. It may be scientific, it may be not, that depends. It depends on the level of the students, on their age, whatnot. But still they need to find, or at least arrange and compile some amount of information. They present it, well, at least to some extent, in a creative way, in a way that they choose. Again, at least to some extent. They have to communicate both among themselves while working on the project, and with a certain audience, either real or imaginary, but they target their message to a specific audience. And very frequently they have to collaborate. Again, they have to collaborate with their partners, with their fellow students. Sometimes they have to collaborate with somebody like externally. They have to find some extra sources of information outside. And all of this results in a product that is that serves real-life purposes, and this is what matters. And this is what actually drives students towards better results. Another benefit of project-based learning is that it involves all the 4 skills, and it happens just, well, let's say naturally. Because in order to produce some kind of a product of a project, they need to read something, they need to, they need to listen to something potentially, listen to, I don't know, YouTube videos, whatever. They can listen to their partners, they can listen to, again, their peers, some researchers, whatever, depending on the context. They need to write, probably. Maybe this will be just some notes that they take. Maybe the project itself presupposes some kind of a writing product. They have to speak, of course. They have to speak with their peers. They have to speak in varying amounts, but still when they present the product of their research and their project. So there are all of those skills. They're not trained as just skills for the sake of training skills, which what frequently happens, for example, in within the communicative approach, when we train certain skills, but we do not kind of set the purpose of that. We do not provide really real world context for that kind of training. Another benefit of project-based learning is increased motivation. On the one hand, of course, projects are more challenging for our students. They are less accustomed to that format of learning, but still, as they are given a lot of freedom in choosing the content, sometimes in choosing the topic even, they understand that the final product is their responsibility. And that's why they will, in most cases, they would like to perform at a level which is higher than a bare minimum. They use technology in a very authentic way. Today we hear quite often that we need to introduce technology in our classrooms as much as possible, because it's part of the everyday life of our students, etc. But sometimes we do not ask ourselves, why do we use it? What is the added value? Why do we use technology where we could, I don't know, just talk to our students or use some tangible visuals? But with projects, it happens naturally. Students use technology to look for information, to design something, to create some visuals for their presentation, for their billboard or whatever they are going to produce. And they learn to use technology authentically, not as a tool for just used for fun, which is it has its value and it's it has its importance in itself, but still it is school-like, let's say. It is not the way we use technology in our everyday life. One more important point, which probably we all really strive to promote in our classrooms, it's interaction with language beyond it. Of course, we all give homework. We expect our students to develop their skills and do as much as possible beyond our classrooms, just to improve their level. But again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. With projects, students will have to interact with language. But if homework is just something that is set for them, it's an obligation that they have to perform. When we talk about the project, their students will have to look for information, will have to create something. So it is them who chooses, what to do actually, how to interact with the language. And this is something that, again, increases motivation to do that. Apart from that, project-based learning is very good for mixed classes because it allows for equal participation. First of all, we can conceive a project in the way that our students can participate, can cope with the task, at a different level. Of course, they will get a different mark, which is logical and normal, but they will be able to cope with the task, to produce some kind of a product. And apart from that, project-based learning gives us more subtle ways of distributing roles. And sometimes we can give a student, like a weaker student maybe, a role that that is kind of easier to perform, but it doesn't mean that it's it's not that obvious for other students. So it doesn't stigmatize weaker students, and really it gives ample opportunities for differentiation. And every student will be able to learn at their own pace, at their own, use their own resources and use their own, interests when getting involved in the project. So, what kind of projects can we set for our students? Just a brief kind of copyright disclaimer. I'm pretty sure that I've read about this project somewhere, but I'm not sure where. So, let's just have a look at the compilation that I've come up with. Of course, there are many more ideas for setting projects, and they depend on the age of the students, on their level, and probably this is one of the limitations that is frequently cited in relation with project-based learning, because it doesn't suit well, for example, very young learners. It doesn't suit well very low-level students, like beginners, just because it gives a lot of independence to the learners, but it also requires kind of a lot of independence. And if students do not have it, probably we cannot, expect, for example, beginners to get involved in a project, though it depends, of course, and it depends on the age as well. But if we organize a project effectively, it can really promote both students' independence and their performance. From what you can probably see on the screen, you can ask students to create an interactive family tree, for instance. Probably this is a topic that we know pretty well from many books that are focused on the topics of family for usually low-level students. And these topics do not work really well, for example, with with young adults, probably because they realize that family is not the first topic they're going to talk about if they meet a foreigner. But if you ask them to create an interactive family tree and add some, for example, voiceovers from their family members, those who are alive, maybe even to include some perspectives on certain, maybe social issues, maybe family history. If you make that family tree come alive using technology, again, these can be pretty attractive and pretty motivating for students of various ages. You can ask your students to design a perfect school, which is a task that will probably resonate with quite a variety of students of different interests and ages. Just because, well, school students, for example, they can reimagine their own school from the point of view of, I don't know, content, ways to manage the school, grading, environment, whatever. Students of a university can rethink their university education. Even people who, the adults actually, they can engage with such a project from the perspective of the labor market and reflect on the educational system in general on the basis of a certain school or university. As for compiling a job application portfolio, that probably suits more university students. But actually, if your students are creative enough, they can actually work something out for the jobs they'd like to do in the future. And create partially verbal, partially visual portfolio that can even work as kind of career guidance for them. So we can find some added benefit, again, from the point of view of their future career. We can ask them to visualize the impact of global warming in coastal cities. And this is kind of a project that could be nice for low-level students, again, because there you can pretty much, with any project that requires some kind of visual output, you can vary the amount of language that the students need to include. And there you can be pretty flexible about it, depending, again, on the level, depending on the age, etc. So visualization and projects that are aimed at visualization are pretty adaptable from this point of view. On the other hand, they help to, again, deal with some real-world issues like global warming and what could happen to the coastal cities or any other areas, for example, I don't know, the ice or whatever, the ice layer due to global warming. And that, again, at the same time raises awareness of the climate change and its impact. If you read something during your lessons, like a story or a novel, maybe even, you can ask to write a script of that story and perform it as a play. You can ask to rewrite that story from the point of view of a single character or of a real person, possibly even. And that will make students not just, let's say, answer questions, and show that they understood what they've read, but again, reflect on the content and reappropriate that content and make it their own. And maybe reflect on it and rethink it from the point of view of, the modern world, if this is some kind of a classical story. And in that way, again, we make them, modernize, let's say, the content and bring it into the modern world and their real lives today. As for some more flexible projects that we could ask them to make, here you can see, several tasks that can be adapted depending on the age, on the topics that you want them to work on and whatever. These kind of projects, they are also kind of nice for the purposes of CLIL, which is a trend in university education, yes. But it's also a nice way to engage students and to motivate them to learn not only language but also some other subjects, because when we create links between language learning and other fields, other spheres of knowledge, we show that language can be a way, can be like a useful tool to master some other subjects and to interact with a variety of contexts actually. For example, you could ask your students to visualize an abstract concept, like, I know, wisdom or freedom or conflict, any abstract concept, and explain the visualization. In that way, well, first of all, your students will think a lot about, well, how they conceptualize it, how they understand this abstract concept in the first place, what it means to them personally, but also how it was, represented in the human history. You can expect them to produce some kind of billboards or PowerPoint presentations. That's already like up to you, and it depends on the students, on their age and on their level. But I'm pretty sure that all the students will be able to identify, at least to a certain extent, with this concept, because all of them will have an opinion on that. They will have some images that spring to their mind when they hear about this concept, and probably those images will be pretty visual. Maybe be some extracts from history books or newspapers, or just some memes that they've seen on the internet. But probably this is a thing that would resonate with them anyway. You could use kind of an impersonation task, which is what would somebody say about a certain issue, and then you or basically your students can choose a personality. This can be a real person or a character of a book, of a film, whatever, and an appropriate issue, social issue, again, any debatable issue, or you can make it actually fun and kind of just come up with some kind of incongruous issue that is not that real world, but would add more creativity to the classroom. And ask the students to give a presentation, give a talk on the part of that personality. Of course, as technology is definitely a motivator especially for young people, but not only, they could design an app. If it's possible, of course, it's great when you do that in cooperation with IT teachers who can help them really design an app. Or you can do that they can make sort of a presentation of their app. What are the purposes of that app? Who is the target audience? Why the target audience would benefit from this app? Why it's not, it hasn't been developed yet, possibly. And that, again, that not only creates some kind of, interdisciplinary connections, but also teaches students to target a specific, listener, viewer, whatever. They understand that, they need to find an appropriate way to communicate depending on who they communicate to. And if they design an app, they definitely need to understand who will use it, or who could benefit from its functions. The same is true for creating publicity around an issue or a person. If students need to create publicity, this can be visual, this can be in the form of a presentation just, but they can choose an issue or the person, whatever they consider, beautiful, attractive, important, whatever. So basically something that, that they consider worth attention, and something that, or somebody, they want the world to learn more about. In that way, they find ways to publicize it, for this person or for this issue to be more debatable, to become more popular and represented, maybe in the media. Probably this is the first thing that will come to their minds, but not only. This can be about really advertising. This can be about some kind of social advertising. And again, you give the students the freedom to choose how they are going to publicize it, what kind of means they're going to use to draw attention of the audience to this issue or to this person. Again, considering that they interact with internet content every single day, probably it could be nice to choose a piece of viral content. Can be a meme, a video, or whatever, and explain its impact and why, in their opinion, it went viral. And probably they will have to reflect on, what makes some piece of content viral in general, and what kind of an impact that produces in our culture. All those things, they involve language. They involve language to a significant extent, but they make students reflect on a variety of issues, and a variety of issues that are relevant to them, at least in a certain extent. And we need to realize that students really, they have opinions about almost everything. But we need to give them space to express those opinions, and to present their view of the issue, whatever that issue is. And if they can choose the topic more or less freely, that's even better, because they will speak about what actually, what they can identify with, and what is relevant to them. And that will help probably us as teachers in terms of choosing content. Of course, the projects, they can be specific, they can be just as role plays, debates, presentations, so something very, very general. But here you need to remember that actually any project and its basic difference, for example, from task-based learning. In task-based learning, the task covers normally one lesson. So, but projects, they extend over several lessons, sometimes maybe even a semester, and they require research. So when you ask your students to take part in debates, in role plays, and presentations as part of a project, you need to remember that actually they shouldn't be able to just come and, let's say, improvise. So there should be some kind of evidence required, or maybe some kind of specific information, maybe some kind of cause-effect analysis involved. So something that actually pushes them to work on that project throughout this period of time, because they realize that they cannot, even with a pretty good level of language, they cannot just come and come up with an improvisation, which is pretty important. As for organization of a project, actually something that we're moving on to. First of all, projects require a lot of planning, but they also require a lot of on-the-go thinking. And this is probably, something that we need to find the right balance in. Primarily, the task, the final product of the project must be described very clearly, from the very beginning. And the expectations must be set very clearly from the very beginning. And the criteria for assessment also must be provided, the rubrics, they must be provided at the very beginning again. And it's not just about making assessment transparent and clear, but it's also about providing kind of a model that can guide students throughout the project, and that they can basically check that they are moving in the right direction. Another sort of dilemma in project-based learning is the correlation of independence and support on our part as teachers. Of course, independence, it's probably the greatest benefit of project-based learning, and it is actually one of the main purposes of organizing a project. But we need to understand that we provide enough support, that in our classes or throughout some platforms like, I don't know, Moodle or whatever that might be, we provide the necessary language, like grammar, vocabulary, functional language, that in the classroom we actually help them as much as we can. And the students understand it. For example, here I could use that word, or that piece of information could correlate with, like, that's part of the project, etc. So we need to guide them through that language. And it is very important to provide numerous opportunities for simulation, if it is possible, if it is, for example, a debate or presentation, so some kind of maybe tutorials, maybe just some kind of simulations in class, where first of all, students can try out their skills and see whether they perform to a sufficient standard. And what is even more important, they can get feedback. They can get feedback both from other learners, which is probably more welcome, because their peers probably won't be judgmental about their work. They will just be striving to help. But also the feedback from you as a teacher, because during those sessions you can understand where they need more support, where they can figure it out themselves, but also help with the language, help with the content, provide any necessary guidance, because projects, they require really continuous feedback for them to be successful, and for the students not to feel that they're just left to themselves. Another important part of this support that we can actually give to our students is in terms of their research. And though, again, it must be as independent as possible, we can create some spaces like Padlets, like, more boards, or like, basically like shared Google Docs, whatever that is, to share information, where students can share information with each other, but also where you can, let's say, intervene in order to help, but also to to give some example of what is expected, of what quality of information is expected, in which direction they should move. And when this is such a collaborative space, you won't be probably seen as much as a teacher, but more as, again, like a mentor, just a helping hand. And so, but at the same time, students will see that, okay, this is what is expected, or like this is something that really meets the criteria that we need to comply with at the end of our project. And this probably is, the greatest challenge of project organization, where we can actually, provide students with multiple opportunities to find themselves, to find their way in the world, to find their way in the world of information, because today we are basically drowning in all the information that we are bombarded with every time, and to think critically, to choose the information that we consider is good, that we consider is well-grounded. It is one of the essential skills in the real world, and to search for information and to find it and to present it to a standard that is that is sufficient for a specific audience, for a specific purpose, depends. What is also good practice after the project is completed is to ask for some kind of feedback from the students. Maybe not that kind of feedback, but reflection. It can be sort of, piece of writing, it can be a reflective video, whatever. But that creates opportunities for some feedback for you as well. First of all, such a task will require students to see what went well, where they performed well, where they could have performed better, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what they've learned over the course of the project, both from the point of view of language and content, what they need to work on more, possibly. And these tasks make them reflect, and even if they wouldn't do that, but for that task. And this is useful for the students, but it's also useful for us as teachers, because we can see what worked out well, where they need more support, what we could improve in our organization, because at the end of the day, it is learning, it is up to the student. And what we need to do as teachers is just to equip them with all the tools possible for them to succeed in their classrooms, but also in the real world, where they'll have to use language to their advantage. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, I would be very thankful to see them in the chat box. I'll probably have some of those already. So if you have any questions, comments, or maybe your own experiences to share as for using project-based learning, you're most welcome to share with us. Well, if there are no questions, no comments, or, well, I'm very grateful for your listening. I do hope that it was, well, a little bit useful, and maybe it will help to make our classrooms a little bit more welcoming and a little bit more, well, student-centered, I would say. So thank you for your participation, and, well, have a nice evening, and hopefully, well, you will be welcome to some other seminars and conferences of Urok.